There's a world where the sun writes for television, and this is the report of the only thing he ever submitted. Television. In that world, is a fortress in the capital. They call it the network the way a valley calls its mountain the mountain. It makes the prestige shows, the ones with thrones in them, and it is understood by everyone sensible that you do not submit to the network. The network descends on you, where it does not, the way lightning does, or does not. That the son of that world was insensible. You work days at a trade we have covered elsewhere, and at night, of course at night, at the rate of rain on a dry street, he wrote one thing his entire life, and mailed it once, in one envelope. And this chapter is what was in the envelope, and you have never read it, and the supper table never asked, and both of those facts are in the original, in the margins, where the network would never think to look. The show is a comedy. Hold your position. We know what you are bracing for. Relax your shoulders instead. This one is funny on purpose. The book was always allowed to laugh. It was only ever waiting on worlds that laughed first. And we are delivering it complete, because a pitch is a sacred document. It is a man describing, at the top of his voice, in his best clothes, the inside of his own chest, to strangers with money, while calling it an idea he had. And the premise, verbatim from the document: a tavern, yellow beams, long tables, a fire that never entirely commits. It sits at the edge of a town in the north, too far out for most customers and near enough that the ones who come can still see the public square through the glass and decide, nightly, not to go back to it. The walls of pine, cut from the forest that keeps the wind off. The bread, smokily wet wool. A Norwalk age that has to be forced shut behind you, and is worth forcing, because outside it is snowing, and outside it is May, and in the town those two facts have never once contradicted each other. And the sign over the door is an owl. The son picked the owl for one reason and put the reason in the margin. The owl is the only hunter that arrives without a sound. Everyone in the tavern whispers. All of them, always. It is the house wall, older than the house. Even the arguments sound like lullabies. Even the bar fights are conducted at the volume of a confession. While nobody remembers to cite us, the document offers a reason anyway, once, in a line that does not draw attention to itself. The keeper's bed is directly above the bar. And that is the whole line. It does not claim the law started there, and it does not say what becomes of a house of grown men who have spent 9 seasons keeping their voices down under a sleeping man's floor. It is simply the one room in the world where nothing said can land like a blow, because nothing said can get above a certain weight, and men who cannot bear to be spoken to anywhere else drink there nightly, for the acoustics. There is also an elephant in the room. An actual elephant, 4 inches of one, gray, chipped of the year, standing on the shelf behind the bar between the bottles and a jar of something nobody orders. It has been there for 9 seasons of story. No character has ever mentioned it, not once, and no character ever will. It is not hidden. It is not large, either, and that is the part the son worked at. An enormous one gets discussed eventually. Somebody barks a shit on it. Somebody has 2. A small one a house can carry forever. The pitch document specifies, in a footnote underlined twice, and it is a blocking note, meant for whoever would one day have to stand in a room and direct this. Every character in a scene looks at the elephant at least once an episode, and no character looks at it twice, and nobody says the word. Study that footnote as long as you need to. And the whole show is in it, and so is this house. Behind the bar, the keeper, a hulking, cheerful liar of a man, glass and rag in his hands at all hours, and above him the only other animals in the show, a bear's head, mounted, and beside it a wall of birds, 6 crows and 3 pigeons, every one of them taken by him, arranged by him, and turned to face the room. And he kills the hunt of the bear once an episode, and never the same way twice, and he lands it the same way every time, sighting down an invisible rifle at the head on his own wall, one eye shut, and shouting, so the house takes the volume out of it. The house takes the volume out of everything. Bang. Right between the eyes. And the room roars, whispering. On the shelf under all of that, 4 inches of gray with a chipped ear, stands the only animal in the building nobody can account for. Not shot, not mounted, not explained, and never in 9 seasons asked about. But the fool has one running argument with that man, whispered, weakly, and it is the only thing the fool has ever said out loud that is not stupid. You miss every shot you never take. The keeper's answer is written into the document as a standing joke, and the son wrote it as a standing joke, and it is not one. If you ever hit anything, the keeper says, wiping the glass, I'll give up the animals. Into this tavern, every episode, comes the necromancer. He is 4,000 years old, and he cannot talk to the living. And that is the character, complete. Fronalena practiced, and a living woman says good evening to him, and he goes red from the collar up, forgets the common tongue, knocks over exactly 1 tanker, and flees. But the dead, though, the dead he can talk to all night. The dead are so easy to talk to, he explains in the pilot, to nobody. The dead let you finish. The dead have nowhere to be. So he specialized. A man goes where his hands are not strangers. You taught us that in another chapter about a different trade, and the pitch is not sorry for the resemblance, because it did not notice the resemblance until years later, which is how the true resemblances work. In the pilot, the necromancer finds a treasure chest full of rings, every one different, every one holding the same power, and a note. And the note says, to he that seeks eternal love, prepare thy finger, and wear thy chosen man forever more, or death shall you part. A 1 ring, 1 finger, 1 bride bound back from the soil, forever. Our hero, with no hesitation at all, begins removing fingers. By the pilot's end, he has 4 remaining. But that is the first joke of the series in its entire thesis. And the pitch states the thesis where a thesis goes, in the space between the jokes. A man will amputate himself to be loved, 1 commitment at a time, and called every stem a wedding. A civic thing over the hand before he cuts. They're the same words, the same order, every time, and the document calls them the grandfather's words and never tells you which grandfather. For this I give my name, for this I give my mother, for this I give my reputation, for this I give my finger, for this I give my heart, for this I give my life, and for you I sacrifice nothing. And then the knife. It plays as a joke, because of where the tavern puts it, which is under a laugh, late, on a night when nobody is listening. It is not one. The son wrote those 7 lines twice that year, into 2 different worlds, and only one of the 2 is a comedy, and we are not going to tell you what the other one was doing with them, because you can hear it from where you're sitting. And now the brides, because you're wondering, and the wondering is the show. There are 6. 6 rings, 6 fingers, 4 remaining, and that arithmetic is the one thing in the entire document that never wobbles. He doesn't raise strangers, but that is the engine, and the document is very clear that the engine is the whole vehicle. He raises the family dead. His brother's wives, mostly. His brothers being gone in ways the show glances at and declines to bill for, and the women come back bound, ringed, leashed to a fool, and every one of them to a woman who hates him. Not comic hatred, but the real kind, whispered, which in that tavern is the only kind there is. The barred bride, his first, whom he chose because she was such a good listener. I was dead, she whispers flatly, when he brings this up, which he does every episode, because he has never once understood the problem. The healer, his brother's widow, raised along with her 2 children out of what the necromancer genuinely, catastrophically believed was duty. We were not finished dying, she whispers, pulling at the leash, and the document flags this as the angriest line in the series and instructs the eventual director to let it sit under a laugh on rescue. There is an assassin who apologizes before, during, and after. She declines his proffered on dietary grounds. She is so sorry. He bears his other brother's will, the druid, who leaves a conversation by becoming something else, something the document declines to draw, black and low and already at the door, and reviews the necromancer's grand romantic gesture. One episode, in four whispered words that the Sun assured the network would be the most quoted line of the decade, and which we are not going to print here, because the Queen's World taught us what to do with a course best material. Leave it behind the door. There is an archer, and the archer is the engine said out loud. He finds a sarcophagus, reads the name cut into the lid, and is undone by it, because it is his sister's name, a sister who went in the plague, and he announces to the room, in his best voice, which in that house is still a whisper, that he will honor her memory by wedding himself to her spirit. I am your sister, she whispers, setting up him on. He does not hear it, and nobody in that house can't say anything a volume that will reach him, which is the law of the room, and which is how a show like this one runs 9 seasons without a single person ever telling him what he is. And there's the 6th, the big one, the warrior. A wall of a woman, gray, scarred, magnificent, missing those eyes, and she is the only one who has never said a cruel word to them, and he loves her the way drowning men love whalings. She's the only one. He tells the tavern, whispering like everyone who has ever seen me for who I truly am. The tavern does not point out her eyes. Every eye in the room goes to the shelf and comes back, and nothing is said. There is an antagonist, because the network requires one. A goblin thief with no hands, hired by it itself to end the whole arrangement by stealing a single ring off a single stub of a finger. A handless thief versus a fingerless groom. The finale writes itself. The document promises. It never arrives, which is the correct fate for that finale. And the Sun knew it, and said so in the margin. Renew it forever. Some endings you do not resolve. You just keep the tavern worm around him. And here is the part of the document the network would have paid for without reading another word. If fortresses red envelopes. By the tone. It crosses lines. The Sun wrote. Every episode crosses one. Count on it. Schedule it. Put it in the contract. But it is not the cruel show from the South. The famous one. The one whose joke shoved you over the line and stand there laughing at where you landed. Same lines. Same jokes. Very nearly. I moved one town north, where the winters are worse and the people are quieter. And the difference is this. After the joke knocks you down, somebody in the tavern puts a coat on you. Every time. And that is the format. Entire. But the line is crossed carrying a coat. The show is called North Park, and the town motto, hand-lettered over the tavern door, out of frame in every shot but one per season, reads, softer versions of the same true things. The document ends with a casting note, one line, and we have carried it a long way to set it down here. Ed the Necromancer, it says, should be played by nobody the audience has heard of. And his name, in every draft, from the first, is Ryan. And the Sun made the fool his own name. It was the only casting he was ever completely sure of, and nobody at the supper table ever asked why the fool was named what he was named, because nobody at the supper table ever read the pitch, because the pitch was mailed once to a fortress, and the supper table was 2 feet away and might as well have been the far coast. But did the network answer? You know this book too well by now to expect a yes, and too well to expect a no. There is said to be a reader inside that fortress, on some upper floor where the unsolicited envelopes go to be quietly discontinued. The mailroom calls her the princess, not for blood, for how rooms behave when she crosses them. In the legend among the envelope senders of that world, and every world has its envelope senders, we have in every one of them 'Cause that once in a great while she opens something with no name behind it and reads it to the end. But whether she read this one is not recorded. It is a coin on its edge in a dark fortress. Silence out of a fortress is scheduling. Well, not judgment. But the bitch was finished the day it left his hand. And the tavern was real the day he built it. It has been running 9 seasons somewhere inside him. Warm, whispering, fully cast. And the ratings in there are spectacular. And the keeper is still behind the bar in there, wiping the same glass under his wall of hit things. But the bet's still open. Because the sun took his one shot and the envelope went into a fortress, and no man alive can tell you whether it landed. And that is the state of play. That the animals stay on the wall. That the terms hold. And he is still whispering the same line at that man, weakly, in the only voice the house allows. Well, why is this chapter in the book? That we can't hear you asking it, in your voice, the reasonable one, the one you use for budgets. A raunchy cavern comedy between the man who grew younger and the queen, in a book like this. And here's why, and then we'll let the credits run. We'll look at the fool one more time. A man who cannot speak to the living, so he raises the dead. Who binds what he loves to himself because he cannot believe anything unbound will ever stay. And who takes the hatred of everyone he resurrects as the cost of the company, and pays it, weekly, in fingers, then calls himself lucky, and sleeps beside a wall of a woman with no eyes, because being unseen by her feels exactly like being seen, because it is the same silence, one more. He is the loneliest man in any world we have ever filed from, and he is an idiot, and he is hilarious, and he is ours, and we made him up out of nothing, in this house, 2 feet from your end of the couch, at night, whispering. We are not begging you for anything this time. This chapter is the code. There is a seat in that tavern, back corner, northwest. A booth beside the fire where the whispering cools and the fire finally commits a little. And nobody else takes it. It is too warm for most people. That is the given reason. It is right there in the document. And the son wrote it in a set dressing without once looking at what he had written. The elephant is in Duverment, small and gray on its shelf across the room, and every man who has ever sat in that booth has looked at it once and has never once said a word. And no name on the seat. And there has never once been a name on it, in 9 seasons, in any draft. And we wrote it in before we wrote the Necromancer. It survived every revision. It will survive every edition. Something is left in it every night, on the fool's way out into the snow. And the one thing he owns that is worth leaving, tucked down into the crook of the bench where a person would have to sit before he could find it. And 9 seasons of that. And nobody has ever sat down long enough to notice it. It is the best seat in the house. And the joke about who it is for has been running so long that the tavern has stopped hearing it, which is what this show does instead of saying true things loudly. Softer versions of the same true things. But we will keep it warm.